Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We are merging the highly technical art of cinematography with the incredibly deep spiritual history of Nepal's holiest site. We're basically taking the literal lens of a camera and using it to focus on a place where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual worlds completely blur together. Think about this for a second. How do you even begin to frame a location where vibrant life and inevitable death don't just exist in the same city, but literally walk side by side? They share the exact same riverbank. Well, that question is our guiding lens today as we explore the Kathmandu Valley. We're going to learn how to capture its profound essence, using both our camera settings and, honestly more importantly, our understanding of its ancient soul. To answer that, we're actually taking a cue from a digital creator. The idea is, if you want to make a truly cinematic travelogue, just hitting record, that only captures a fleeting moment. But filling the frame with intention, well, that's what actually makes it a story. We're taking that concept of filling the frame with your own personality and applying it to how the divine presence completely fills the staggering expanse of the Pashupatinath Temple. It's all about being an active participant in what you're seeing, rather than just a passive observer. Now, to put things into perspective geographically, we're talking about a mere 5 kilometers. This deeply mystical, sprawling complex on the banks of the Bagmati River is just a 5-kilometer, roughly 15-minute drive from the roar of Tribhuvan International Airport's jet engines. I mean, imagine that. Stepping off a modern plane, leaving that whole world behind, and within minutes, stepping into a reality that has operated on these sacred, ancient rhythms for centuries. Okay, before we hit record, we've got to establish our historical anchor. You have to know what you're filming, right? So tracing the sacred roots of this land, the foundation was laid way back around 300 AD during the Lichavi period. But then, right around 1200 AD, under the Malla dynasty, the valley experienced an absolute explosion of architectural brilliance. And it's exactly this continuous, completely undisturbed cultural preservation that ultimately led to its UNESCO World Heritage designation in 1979. That Malla dynasty era was literally the golden age for architecture here. The rulers actually competed with each other to build the absolute most magnificent temples. They were handing out land endowments and issuing royal decrees just to make sure these incredible structures were maintained. It was a true golden age, and it perfectly set the stage for the visually staggering complex we still get to see today. So, grabbing our cameras, how do we begin to capture an entire valley of heritage? Well, let's start wide with a high-angle shot. Placing the camera above the subject gives us that broad, sweeping perspective we need to really grasp the sheer, unbelievable scale of Pashupatinath. Looking down from up high, you instantly realize you're not just looking at one building. It's like a massive puzzle of over 500 temples, shrines, and ashrams. Right in the middle is the main 2-story temple, topped with this absolutely magnificent golden roof. And here's the thing. While the inner sanctum is strictly reserved for Hindu devotees, its energy radiates way outward, pulling in pilgrims, sadhus, and travelers from literally all across the globe. All right, we've seen the big picture. Now, let's push in for a medium shot to frame up some specific details while keeping a bit of that background context. We want to use this framing to examine the actual mythology that makes this specific patch of ground so incredibly holy. Get this, there is an absolutely fascinating mythological parallel here. Legend says that after the Kurukshetra war in the Mahabharata, the Pandavas were desperately seeking Lord Shiva to absolve them of their sins. So Shiva disguised himself as a divine bull. When they chased him, the bull dove straight into the ground. Its back, or its hump, appeared over in India, forming the incredibly famous Kedarnath Temple. But its head, that miraculously manifested right here in Nepal, becoming Pashupatinath. You are quite literally looking at 2 halves of the exact same divine story, just separated by the Himalayas. And when we frame up the main deity inside the temple, we find something totally unique. It's a 4-faced lingam, but with a formless 5th face looking straight up. The 4 faces point east, west, north, and south, representing the fundamental principles of existence. But that 5th face, Ishan, points toward the sky. It represents Shiva as the ultimate master of all living creatures, which, by the way, is exactly what the name Pashupati means, Lord of the Animals or Lord of Life. Okay, time to completely switch things up. Let's drop our camera right down to the dirt for a ground-level shot. We're moving from the high heavens of mythology down to the gritty, raw banks of the Bagmati River, where the stark reality of the human experience is happening right on the surface. This is that ultimate juxtaposition we were talking about earlier. On the Bagmati Ghats, you've got burning cremation pyres with thick smoke rising into the air. Families are right there, saying their absolute final earthly goodbyes. But then, literally steps away on the exact same riverbank, you have vibrant, loud life. Devotees are chanting, sadhus are deep in meditation, and massive crowds are celebrating. Death isn't sanitized or hidden away behind closed doors here. It is seamlessly integrated right into the flow of life. Down here at ground level, we also witness the profound dedication of grieving families. At the nearby ashram, families undergo this incredibly intense 13-day mourning ritual. They wear only white, sleep pointing north on simple straw mattresses, and completely avoid human touch. Then, on the very final day, they symbolically grasp a cow's tail to help guide their loved one's spirit toward reincarnation, or, if they're truly blessed, nirvana. It is an incredibly grueling, yet absolutely beautiful act of devotion. And here is a totally fascinating modern twist on that ancient tradition. Because this 13-day ritual is so physically and emotionally draining, a trend of mourners for hire has actually popped up. Families who maybe live abroad or simply cannot physically endure the 13 days can hire surrogate mourners to stand in for them at the ashram. It's a way to ensure these vital, sacred rituals are perfectly executed, blending modern-day constraints with an unwavering ancient faith. Okay, as evening rolls in and the sun sets over the river, we need to change our lens one last time. We're going in for an extreme close-up to capture all that intense emotion, the escalating energy, and the intricate sensory details of the night. Every single evening, right at 6 p.m., the riverbank just erupts into the Bagmati Arati. It is literally a sensory masterpiece. A close-up shot captures 3 priests moving glowing oil lamps in total synchronization. You can literally smell the heavy scent of wicks soaked in purified ghee. You hear the rhythmic chanting of sacred mantras, and you see devotees completely losing themselves in the Tandav, the highly energetic divine dance of Lord Shiva. It's this overwhelming, deeply beautiful prayer dedicated to the betterment of all humanity. Ultimately, whether you're using a high angle to take in all 500 temples, a medium shot to unpack the myth of the divine bowl, or a tight close-up to capture the raw fire of the arati, the true art is just letting the subject speak for itself. These monuments have stood through centuries of undisturbed development of faith, art, and architecture. You just have to let that timeless glory dictate your story. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this. The tools of cinematography, your angles, your framing, your lighting, they can beautifully capture the visual magic of a place like this. But if a camera only captures light and shadow, what happens to you when you actually visit? Are you ready to let a place like Pashupatinath, where the ashes of the dead literally float right alongside the energetic dances of the living, completely reframe how you see life itself? Definitely something to think about the next time you look through a viewfinder.